Welcome to Talk with Tara, the podcast where we dive into the bold, the funny, and the fascinating. I'm Tara, your host, bringing you unfiltered conversations on life, love, and everything in between. Hit that follow button so you're always in the loop. And now let's get started. Okay, listeners, today we have someone that I'm just so excited about. It's so epic. It's so timely. We have Dr. Lisa Brent. She is the founder and medical director of Be Well Natural Medicine, specializing in integrative women's health. So we're going to be talking about the big buzzword, menopause, perimenopause, hormonal issues, weight loss, all the things that we care about as women in midlife and also in our youth. So she has degrees in, I always have a problem saying this, naturopathic and Chinese medicine from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. She combines holistic gynecology, bioidentical hormone therapy, which I'm so excited to talk about, and mind-body healing to support women through midlife, fertility challenges, and overall well-being. Her approach blends cutting-edge diagnostics with natural treatments addressing physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Dr. Brent's extensive training includes a residency in women's health, advanced studies in medical qigong, Chinese healing practices, and bioidentical hormone therapy. She's passionate about patient empowerment, which I can attest to. She helps women navigate perimenopause, menopause, thyroid and adrenal health, and hormonal imbalance, offering personalized care that bridges the best of naturopathic and conventional medicine. In a nutshell, Dr. Brent focuses on HRT, midlife health, and the intersection of naturopathic and Western medicine. I love this, and I want you to stay tuned because she is having a women's health symposium next month, and it is called the Midlife Symposium, and I think it's going to be an extraordinary event. If you live in Marin County or in San Francisco, she's going to go into more detail, but many experts there, and I just think it's a must-go-to for women. So before we get into it, a quick disclaimer. This episode of Talk with Tara featuring Dr. Lisa Brent is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. While Dr. Brent is a licensed naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist, this podcast does not establish a doctor-patient relationship. The content shared reflects personal and professional perspectives, but is not a substitute for professional medical care, diagnoses, or treatment. Always consult with your own healthcare provider. And with that, Dr. Brent, thank you so much for being on Talk with Tara today. I just cannot wait to dig in.
Me too. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Tara, and congratulations on your podcast. You're a great example of trying new things at midlife, which is
Thank you. I love that. Yeah, it's just beginning. Midlife is just beginning, ladies, and that's what this is about. We're just beginning, so why not feel good while you're in midlife? Feel your best, look your best, and Dr. Lisa Brent is here to help us with this. So before we begin, can you just give us a quick bio, how you started, how you got passionate about helping people with their health care?
Yeah, so I was really drawn to medicine, and there's a lot of doctors and nurses in my family, and so I felt myself kind of pulled to go that way. But there was also a part of me when I was kind of exploring, like, do I want to be a nurse practitioner, an acupuncturist, an MD? I ran into this dilemma because I was also really curious about the why of why people get sick. What can we do to prevent it? And it seemed like a lot of our medical practices were a lot about fixing things after they already happened. So I just happened to discover in that journey that there was such a thing as naturopathic medicine and that you could be trained as a doctor to practice in that way. And the tenets of it really appealed to me, which is really a lot about looking for the root cause of what's going on with us and treating from there and using methods that are the least harmful but effective tools possible.
I just love that. The reason I know Dr. Brent is because a friend of mine was going through colon cancer and she had some issues afterwards from the chemotherapy, and she went to Dr. Brent, and for her it was life-changing. And I was looking for someone because I wasn't getting the answers that I wanted from my Western doctors, and I thought, where do I go? And I had this friend, she knows everything. She's just so well studied. And she's like, you've got to go to Be Well. And then I started hearing about Be Well. And this is not an advertisement. This is just my own personal experience. I started hearing about it from different friends. Like, oh, you have to go to Dr. Brent. You have to go to Dr. Brent. And I was like, God, I have to check this out. And for me, it was great because like I said, I was getting all this mixed information. One doctor said, oh, take estrogen, but don't take progesterone. Another doctor said, take estrogen, take progesterone. They didn't know anything about testosterone. And so I was like, who can tell me what the story is? And you really helped me with that. So that's why I'm really excited to have you on, because it was a true testament to relieving the fear of aging and menopause. So let's talk about the difference between going to a Western doctor and going to you. What are the differences?
The differences are probably just in the paradigm, again, in kind of naturopathic, and also like, what we hear more about now with functional medicine or integrated medicine. We are really looking at the whole person. So you may be having headaches or you might be having some GI issues, but we're going to step back and look at, what's your stress level? What's your lifestyle? What's your diet? Or is there a cyclic pattern to your symptoms? Looking at systems intertwined. And then making a plan that's really, again, about can we identify the root cause of what's happening, kind of where do we start so that we can actually clear it instead of just making the symptoms go away. I think, again, in general, our Western medical system is more about just kind of, making you feel better, doing something to take the illness away. Sometimes that's appropriate, but it's for kind of long-term health and preventative health, most of us are looking for.
Right. And what about compounds? Like, let's say you have a thyroid issue or you want an estrogen cream. What is the difference between getting it from your Western doctor or the CVS and getting it from a compound pharmacy?
I mean, there's just different options. And, even I use both. It just depends on what's appropriate for the patient. So like thyroid is an example. There are some very effective thyroid medications that I might prescribe if that's indicated. And then sometimes people can't tolerate maybe the synthetic formulas or something that's commercial. So then we might go to a compounding pharmacy and have something made for them. And that's really the advantage of compounding, is that you can customize any medication, really. Sometimes people can't swallow pills. Maybe it's a child, or so we need to make something into a liquid, or they're very sensitive to the fillers or the binders in a medication. We need to have something made very cleanly. Or with hormones like estrogen, we might want to do something that's a daily cream that we can control. So both can be effective. Both are very valid. FDA, compounding pharmacies are FDA regulated. There's some misunderstanding about that. Commercial medications like from CVS and, the regular pharmacies are what we'd say like FDA approved, but they're all regulated and safe if it's from a reliable compounding pharmacy.
You are right. There is a misconception. Even Western doctors will say they're not. Yeah. And so that's really important, listeners, that they're both regulated in their own way. So these are all the misconceptions I hear. Why is it, Dr. Brent, that women's health has been it's such the back burner in Western medicine? It's just not important. I mean, I went into my doctor and I said, I'm interested in testosterone cream. I listened to all these British doctors talk about how important it is. I'd like it for lifting weights. I don't want to lose my muscle mass. And she said, oh, sorry, I don't know anything about that. So it's not the first time I've heard that from a Western doctor. So why is it? Why are we so behind when it comes to women's health?
I mean, it's a really great question. I think it's a wider question, really. Why are we less important in so many ways? But I think there has been a real lack of motivation or interest in looking at women's health, especially midlife health. If you think about it, you get a lot of attention, say, when you're pregnant, right?
Yes,
you're going to the doctor all the time. And then you have the baby, and then really nobody looks at you again, right? You're taking your child to the doctor. But and then nobody really pays attention until things start going wrong later in your life, right? But then you might start getting heart disease or body pain or something, like an illness of some kind. There's just this gap. And I've always thought if I ever get around to writing a book, it would be about that. It's like the lost decade of the 40s, right? Where women are just ignored and we're really left on our own to figure out what's happening. Why am I starting to have more trouble losing weight, or I'm not sleeping as well, or why do I feel cranky all the time? And, we're so good at sort of taking things on ourselves. I just need to exercise more. I need to, drink less wine or eat better. And we are good at figuring out how to take care of ourselves. But I think we could use more support. And it's just been missing. I think partly it also has to do with there not being very conventional protocols for what happens to women in their 40s, because it really looks different. Some women sail through it. Some women start having a really hard time, right at 40.
Yeah.
So it has to be customized in our medical system.
And that's what I hear. Yeah, it has to be what's right for me may not be right for you. And for me personally, I try, fortunately, really symptom free. But what I was on a walk with my girlfriend. She's very intense, very well studied. And she was telling me, Tara, you have to be on estrogen. It's good for our bones. It's good for our brains. It's good for your hair. It's good for your longevity. You're going to look younger, feel better. And I was all of a sudden like, really? I do? And she was like, and I trust this person. She knows, she's very intelligent, and she did her research. And so I got on it. And then I was at the nail salon last week, and I was sitting there and I was saying, oh, my nails are so brittle to them. Nail technician, and the lady next to me heard me. She was in her 60s, very attractive woman, and she said, you better get a bone density test. I said, well, I'm not at the age. She said, it doesn't matter. You should have a baseline bone density test, because I'm 65 and now I don't know what I was when I was 45. And I said, well, my insurance doesn't cover it probably at this age. And she said, doesn't matter. It's cheap. Go do it. It's, $100 or $200. It's worth it. Go get one. I'm thinking to myself, why am I getting this information from the woman at the nail salon and not from my doctor or my physician? Why? And it's just sad. It's like even me going through a separation and getting out there in the dating world and finding a new partner at midlife. So many people told me it's like, oh, don't even bother going out there. You're never going to meet anyone when men want a younger woman. And this is all kind of the feeling that women in midlife in the past have been put out to pasture. And I think it's like, no more. We are not going to take that anymore. We are hot women. I mean, Nicole Kidman is 52, or she was on the Sexy movie, and, playing the sexy woman who was sleeping with her young intern. And I was like, go, Nicole. So, I think it's really important that we take charge of our longevity. Can you tell us what are some things to look for when you're in midlife that, symptoms that you could be in perimenopause or menopause? And it's not just your mental health, it's your hormones.
Yeah. First of all, I would just want to say that it's so great that we talk to each other at nail salons and on our hikes, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of imagine what women used to talk about around the well, right? Or, when we're at the laundromat or something and this is how it happens. We talk to each other, right? And we share information. Women are so communal in that way. And
I love it.
Yeah, such a great time. It's that is all we talk about now, right? Or it's a big focus of our conversations. What women should be looking for, even small changes that they're starting to notice that are different than maybe they were a year ago, 5 years ago. And especially in relation to hormone, keep an eye on anything that's cyclic, right? You sleep well for 2 weeks out of the month, but then for the last, 10 days to 2 weeks before your period, you're not sleeping as well. Watching mood, does that change with your cycle? Headaches, digestive issues, anything that sort of has a pattern that's not constant is a bit of a clue that there's the hormonal fluctuations of the cycle have something to do with it. And then, we don't want to overly throw everything into the perimenopause or hormone basket, right? So, if there's something that's really affecting you, and it doesn't have to be severe. Again, I think we're all so tough and hardy and adaptable that we'll tend to sort of tough it out, right, until something really takes us down. But, small changes, if you're finding that you aren't having, the energy for your workouts that you used to, or you're noticing hair falling out in the shower or something, even these small changes, start to track them, make some notes, see how they correlate with your cycle or not. And then, go see your provider, ask for some blood work and check it out. Things may come back normal, which, at that point, you may want to take it further or consult with someone for a more functional point of view. Or, then you maybe leave it for a little while, but still be tracking what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed, I was tired. I went on a hike and I was tired and I thought, this is weird. I'm usually charging up the mountain. And then I tested my vitamin D. My vitamin D was low. So listen to your body. That's really important.
Yes.
And also, women, do your breast checks. It's so important. Don't just depend on a mammogram, especially if you have implants. What about sex? Women are really scared of, I feel like my libido is better now than it's ever been, which is great. But some people think that they lose their sex drive. And I wanted to ask, one of my questions is it if you're with the same mate for 20 years, it could be you're just sick of your mate and you're bored and it's not your sex drive. But if it is your sex drive, what are some ways that women are there solutions for women if their vagina is dry and it hurts to have sex? I mean, that's really scary.
Yeah. And that will be a libido blocker, right?
Yeah.
If it's not comfortable. I mean, for women, sexual function is really multifactorial, right? It is about our relationship. It's about emotional connection. It's, all kinds of layers for us to really open up in that way.
Yes.
But if we kind of pull out the physical pieces, yes, maintaining vaginal lubrication, that often can require a little bit of hormonal support that way. And even without that, just making sure we're using lubricant so it's comfortable. And then, if you find that sort of your just sexual desire is dropping with or without a partner, just kind of noticing, right? You just don't feel that same, you see someone good looking, you don't feel anything. That can be related to a drop in testosterone, which definitely happens for women in perimenopause and into menopause. It is a hormone that we make and it declines. And it's something that can be measured and it can be replaced. And that can really help with our own sexual energy. And then in turn, actually, when you have sort of more kind of drive, then that actually also helps lubrication, make sex more comfortable.
Okay. So not all women lose their lubrication if they're going through menopause, right?
They will. It is one of the consistent menopausal symptoms. It's a terrible term called atrophic postmenopausal vaginitis, right? It just really means that those vaginal tissues are drier and that makes them thinner and more likely to kind of tear or be uncomfortable during sex. So that does happen. It does not need to stay that way. There are so many easy, effective measures to help mitigate that. And another reason to attend to our vaginal health and the vaginal kind of the integrity of the vaginal walls is that it can help to prevent bladder prolapse also, which can lead to more UTIs. So our whole pelvic region needs to be attended to.
Okay, but just know, ladies, that there are solutions. It's not the end of your sex life.
It's not the end. I mean, once you take you don't have to worry about pregnancy anymore. It actually can be great.
Right, that's true. That's true. Okay, so what are some pros and cons of bioidentical versus synthetic? Are there pros and cons, or they're just different?
They're different. I mean, I think at this point, there's not a lot of pros for synthetic hormone therapy. We don't really need to use it. Those synthetic, things that we used to use like Premarin and Provera that are really not so much in favor anymore. Bioidentical really just means that the hormone replacement is made to chemically be identical to what we used to make, right?
Okay.
That does apply to the estrogen patch, estradiol patch. It is chemically identical to your own estradiol, which is your main estrogen. And same with commercial progesterone like Prometrium. That's bioidentical. There's compounded bioidentical hormones also. And again, really that just means that there's a different format for delivering them, like creams, suppositories, lozenges. And then there's also another estrogen that we use a lot called estriol that we'll put into a compounded formula. But both are effective. It's really sort of what's the right fit for a woman. As far as testosterone, there is no commercial form, which is a big talked about thing now, that there's no commercial testosterone made for women. It's only for men. So that is something that we will usually compound because the men's version is a much higher dose and it's kind of hard to titrate that. So we'll have that made for a woman at a compounding pharmacy.
What about pellets? Is that compounded as well and put under the skin?
Those are put under the skin. They're not compounded. That's a kind of a more commercial product.
Okay.
They can be effective. I personally I don't like the lack of control of pellets. Kind of once they're in, they're in. You have to wait for them to wear off. And that can be great for some people, especially if they've been low in hormones and all of a sudden they get this nice surge. But over time, I have just seen it's harder to regulate versus a daily cream or even a patch that's twice a week. We can adjust the dose more easily. So, but it's a preference thing.
If you take estrogen and progesterone and you maintain it in your body, like my stepmother's still taking it and she's older than I am, does it help with the vaginal dryness and the hair loss and all those things because you're putting it back in your body? You're
helping to mitigate all of the effects of the loss of your hormones at menopause, right? Okay. So that's the more immediate things like skin texture and collagen, hair, the luster of your hair, the vaginal tissues. Although sometimes we need something local for vaginal health. All the things, and then, mood and sleep. And if there's hot flashes, those can really be helped. So there's a lot of things in the here and now that are benefits of hormone replacement therapy. And then there's the long-term benefits as well that your stepmother's probably enjoying, which is helping to maintain her bone density and her cardiovascular health and helping to prevent dementia. Like those are the big three. Those are big ones that get us later in life. They're big. But, there's different opinions. Like I was saying, I listen to these British doctors because I think that in Britain, they've been doing this HRT much more aggressively than we have in the U.S. There's two schools of thought. One is, let's just treat the symptoms. You're 55, your period just stopped, you have a hot flash, you can't sleep, you're drenched, we're going to treat the symptoms. And then there's the school of thought, let's be preemptive and let's do this before you have the symptoms. Who's right? They both are really, because it's really a matter of, quality of life. So if you're feeling fine, you're 55 and maybe you're still cycling, that's a little bit late, but maybe you are and you feel really good. There's no need to treat something that's not happening yet, because if you're still getting a cycle, you're still making estrogen, you're still getting bone protection and all of those, good things. To me, it's really right when things start to not feel good is, we should intervene. There's no reason to suffer. Okay. And then there also are cases where there really never are symptoms. Maybe you stopped menstruating a year ago or 2 years ago and you feel fine. There is argument for treating in the absence of symptoms in that case, again, for the long-term benefits that we talked about. Right. It's so interesting because when I was in my 20s, 30s, and early 40s, didn't even think about menopause. Eventually I was like, oh my gosh, I have to think about this. This is actually a thing. It sounded like an old lady thing, right? Like I just remember thinking, that's way later, right? Yeah, and my mom never talked about it. I remember she was wearing a patch for a short time, and she never talked about it. And my mom's very open. It's not like she's a closed person. And I said, Mom, how was your menopause? I didn't have any issues, I was fine. I'm like, okay. So anyway, just really interesting. So when you're in your 40s and 50s, some people start gaining weight. And there's so many weight loss alternatives today. I don't know all of them. I only know the buzzword one, Ozempic. But I know that Be Well treat people who may need to lose weight. Can you tell us about these injections? I think they're injections, right? And what are their benefits and how do they work? How does a woman go about getting some help if she wants to lose some weight that she can't, stubborn weight, without going under the knife? Yes. Yeah, and I think stubborn weight that's a key phrase, right? Because I think, especially around where we live, everybody takes really good care of themselves. Everyone's eating well and exercising, sometimes even more than they should, and not eating enough. Yes. But it's often not about just diet and exercise, or it's beyond that. And I think what's hard for women is that during the perimenopause into menopause transition, there is a natural kind of weight gain, kind of a laying down of kind of more visceral fat that is just designed to happen. It's all very well thought out for when we used to die not long after menopause. And so it can be frustrating because in spite of all your best efforts, it can happen anyway, just a little bit, maybe thicker around the middle, maybe breasts are getting bigger. And a little bit of that I think is partly what we have to accept, like their bodies do change. And, so there's that piece of it. And then there can be, weight gain that goes beyond that, where it's a little moves into like not great for your health, your heart health, or your blood sugar, regulation. And so I think there's two layers here. One is making sure that biochemistry is supported, all the things that we've talked about, thyroid, blood sugar regulation, making sure hormones are supported, making sure that diet and exercise regimens are appropriate for our phase of life, or my phase of life. I'm older than you, a lot of protein, weightlifting, not too much cardio, stress is managed, that we're sleeping. There's a whole kind of category of things that into our metabolism at this phase.
Alcohol doesn't help you sleep.
Alcohol.
So cut the alcohol. Right?
That's a huge one, right? It's drives up our blood sugar. It affects our liver so that the liver isn't as effective, and it really messes with our sleep. And when we don't sleep well, we are not as efficient. And then stress drives cortisol. Cortisol leads to weight gain, especially around the middle, and makes it very hard to lose weight. All of those things really need a close look, right? And adjusting where we can. If after all of that, there is still like some stubborn weight, right? That is just, it's affecting your self-esteem, and it's frustrating. And, I hear a lot of women say, I have these clothes I really love and I want to be able to wear them. And then, yes, then there are tools, and we're always kind of on the lookout for, kind of a safe and effective hack into the midlife and postmenopausal weight gain and how to help women lose it. The GLP-1 class of medications, which is like you meant, Ozempic, Mounjaro, or the generic versions of them, or the compounded versions, semaglutide, tirzepatide, can be really effective this way. And we have seen them be a great, effective tool that help women sort of slowly and safely take that weight off and keep it off. There have to be lifestyle changes for sure if they aren't already in place. But when it's done correctly, kind of titrated up, managed well, titrated off, they can be great. And I've seen them be game changers. And along the way, they will help with your cholesterol and your blood sugar and your inflammation.
That's
so
good.
There's a lot of health benefits.
Oh, inflammation as well?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. That's
which is
interesting.
kind of our biggest cause of aging
Yeah.
and disease.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So, but I do hear you lose a little muscle mass, right?
You can. So, that's why it's great to be managed through it. Have somebody helping to walk you through it and coach you through it, so that you make sure you're eating enough protein, that you are doing enough weight training to maintain muscle mass. Because we don't want that, right? We want to help to be lean and strong.
Right. Lean and strong, because you have to do resistance training. You have to be lifting weights.
Yes.
So important. I know that women probably come into you and they know you as the person who's going to be their doctor, their natural doctor. At the same time, they come in and they just say, I don't feel as beautiful. I don't feel, like myself. What's your advice to women who are in their second act to love ourselves more and just be okay? There is a grief. I was talking about this to a woman I was interviewing yesterday, and there's a grief to aging. How do we love ourselves and find ourselves beautiful at this age?
It's a all layers approach, right? Like our physical, our mental, our psychological, our, emotional, energetic realm, right?
Yeah.
We're re-looking at everything. What is working, what's not, what's happening in my relationships, in my work, in what's, my children might be leaving, if there are kids at home. It's a big one. It's the biggest transition of our lives since puberty, right? And with even more unknowns, because it's not like you can look around like when you're a teenager, kind of see where you're headed. This is can look so many different ways. I encourage women, let the grief be there. It can feel sad to sort of let that, kind of invincibility feeling of your 30s and 40s go, and, invite in like a new way of being, it can also be amazing because women will also notice that a lot of stuff falls away kind of without that veil of reproductive hormones. We're a little more freed up to speak our mind, to say no, to decide, be more discerning, what works and what doesn't. What am I going to take with me? And that is amazing. I mean, you see people, I'm sure you're a great example. Like, what haven't I done yet? Like, what's next, right? I have more freedom now. I have kind of this confidence I didn't have. I don't feel as encumbered by worrying what people think. There's some really powerful things that will come once we've made peace with the disillusion.
I really don't care what people think anymore. It's just so weird.
I know. It's, because it's, in some ways there is a biochemical shift that allows that. And so, I think we let it be there and we pay attention to kind of what's going on. And then I say this all the time is we look at what we can that's tangible, right? Like, how can we fortify your biochemistry at this time? Because a lot of things are happening, yes, psychologically and in our lives and situationally and aging parents. There's a lot of stuff going on. But what's happening to us physiologically, it can be measured and adjusted, right? So it's easier to discern, do I like my job? Do I want to keep hanging out with these people? If you're sleeping through the night, right? If you aren't hot flashing all the time, if your energy's good, and if your brain is working. So if we can kind of stabilize some of these like accessible things, then I think those bigger questions are a little bit easier to give some bandwidth to because
I agree.
You're just more stable in your body.
Really good answer. You're so right. It's like, I was really scared of separating and being in midlife. And I thought I definitely was going to be put out to pasture. I had this fear. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my second act is just so amazing. I've met so many amazing people. I've become so much more spiritual and closer to higher power. I believe that I've really learned the art of manifestation. And I really know how to advocate for my health and so many wonderful things. I get to watch my kids become adults and have children maybe in the future. I mean, there is really a lot, ladies and men, to look forward to in our midlife. And why not use these tools like hormone replacement therapy or testosterone or a little weight loss help if you're not feeling your most fit, like you work out all the time, but you're not losing the weight. Like, why not do all you can to enhance your life? That's my motto. Yeah.
It's like we're so much more than our physical bodies, but we live in a physical body. So we have to make peace with that. So if we kind of take care of that, then, or, do the best we can, right? Then we get to kind of take that bigger stuff and all this experience, life experience, all the seeds that you've sown, and take it out for a ride and, whatever that looks like. Yeah.
And help other people. I love giving my daughter's friends advice, romantic advice. I love doing that. So before we talk about your symposium, I'm so excited about this. If you could give a couple pieces, I know you just gave some great advice, but one piece of advice about thriving in midlife, you just did it, but if there's one thing you want to leave the listeners with, what would it be?
Well, how about 1.5? Okay. Narrow it down. One is, I think what I've already said, but it's really important, I think, is you do not need to suffer. There is nothing to be gained from it. We've already proven we're strong. You do not need to be uncomfortable. And the second thing I think what's really important is to remember that we are planting the seeds now for ourselves in 30 years. Yeah. It's like a time capsule, right? What you do in your late 40s and your 50s and even into your 60s will influence how you are when you're 80, 90, 100. And if we are going to live longer, which statistically we do, we want to feel well, right? All of these good things that you're manifesting, putting together, we want to be around to enjoy them and not sick or have chronic disease. So just, I think this idea of planting the seeds now when we have a lot of influence on how we age is the most important thing.
Yeah, and also for our gut health. I know that I've been to your practice for gut health as well, which was very helpful for me. And one of the questions I was going to ask you, and I forgot to ask you, was about our whole hormonal system. I mean, we have so many hormones, right? So it's not just our, estrogen and progesterone, it's our adrenal system.
Yes.
And there's so many.
Thyroid.
Yeah, thyroid.
Yes.
And
blood sugar.
yeah, blood sugar. So take care of yourself. So I think that's really great advice. And okay, so now I'm really excited. It's called Be Well, Thriving at Midlife, a Woman's Health Symposium. You have so many amazing speakers. It's on a Saturday, so it's a time that I can attend because I do have a job. I was worried about that. And it's Saturday, March 29th from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. But can you tell us about some of the things you're going to cover and how do people get a hold of you? I'm also going to put this in the show notes. Great. How do people attend this symposium? You have other providers at Be Well Natural Medicine, and it's, so if they have gut health or something else they want to talk about, if you could quickly talk about that as we wrap up, that would be great.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, this is our third Women's Health Symposium. It is an in-person event. And I got this idea really when the whole Instagram menopause thing hit, right? And there was so much information out there. And I realized that this was great, but it was also kind of overwhelmed, right? Yep. And so I thought, let's do something in person. This is what we do. It's myself. It's Dr. La Follette, who's a great OB-GYN. Yes. Everybody loves her.
Everybody knows her.
Dr. Peter Koshland, who runs Koshland Pharmacy, he's a compounding pharmacist, but he's also just a generally very smart person about all medications. And especially he can talk about hormones really eloquently. It's Lori Schwanbeck, who's this really gifted psychotherapist, mindfulness expert. She works a lot with the Elder Academy. And so it's been the four of us, and it will be again, and we'll have a couple more people joining us this time, each kind of bringing our lens of expertise into the midlife health, both psychologically, physically, emotionally. We all kind of share this idea that women should not suffer and that there are tools available. We come at it a little bit differently, but together, I think we have a lot of information to offer. So the event, we did it on a Saturday. We did it. It's not all day, so it's practical for women. There's a lot of time. So we'll present, and there'll be panel questions, but then there's a lot of time for question and answer. And that was really important to me because it's confusing, right?
It is.
What are these weight loss medications? What does compounding mean? Should I use testosterone? What's the adrenal gland? And so we really make space for that. And then we have this really great organic lunch. Women really get to know each other. And, you know how it is, like one person has a question, but 10 other people are thinking the same
and they're like,
thing.
oh, I wanted to ask that.
Yes. So it's very dynamic. And we did it the first time. It was so great. I booked the second one right away. This will be our third time. I think eventually we'll try to do something virtual so that people out of the area can join us too. Because I think it's important. There's no one size fits all to menopause. Everybody's got kind of a different angle, and we want women to be able to ask questions.
So tell people how they find you.
Yeah, so our website, it's bewellnaturalmedicine.net is our website. There is a .com, but they're in Michigan. So bewellnaturalmedicine.net. And on that website is how to contact us, the doctors you can see everything about the doctors in the practice, how to contact the practice. And then you'll see there our Spring Women's Health event is all the information about the symposium and how to register.
Oh, that's so great. Okay, well, I'm going to put everything in the show notes,
awesome,
and I'm going to attend the symposium because I think it's going to be really informative, and I think I'm going to bring some girlfriends with me.
It's a good girlfriend event.
Yeah, so thank you so much. This has been so wonderful, and I'm just so glad you're in my neighborhood and I'm able to pop in and see you when I need extra support. It's been really helpful for me, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my honor. I love to do it, and thank you for having me on today. It's fun to talk about these things.
It is, and so important. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Talk with Tara. If you loved today's episode, follow the show and share it with a friend. Stay tuned. There's so much more to talk about. See you next time.